Oh, okay. Now we're live.
Hey, there we are.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. The intro video there got stuck for a second, and it didn't count down correctly. But we're here now. Welcome to the February 19th edition of Signals from Mars, brought to you by the Mars Attacks podcast. Joining me once again this week is Mr. Brad Dahl, who initially was not going to be part of the show, but surprised us last second by saying, put me in, coach. So Brad is back, and we're going to be talking just all types of music-related stuff. Brad is from Yarg Metal, for those that don't know. Currently playing Black Sabbath's Into the Void, so I'm assuming that your brother picked this track.
Actually, I'm pretty sure he introduced it. I didn't hear it. I turned my volume down here, but
Okay.
definitely. But which, by the way, one of my all-time favorite Black Sabbath songs to play with a band is "Into the Void." Oh, dude, that song is just so heavy. I mean, the bass part, and then it's an epic song. Love that song.
Absolutely, definitely one of their classics. Also covered by Soundgarden many years later. They went and kind of revamped the lyrics of the song to kind of go with what was going on in the 90s. So looks like we already have Jeremy Weltman joining us from the UK.
Hey, Jeremy.
He's saying that's one of his favorite Black Sabbath. That's one of my BS faves too. He means Black Sabbath, not that other BS word.
The other song off that album, Lord of this World, is another one of my favorite ones to play. And the funny thing about that, back in my high school days when we'd be playing an outdoor party in somebody's backyard, it seemed like that was always later in the set list, because you kind of save the really cool songs, the really fun to play songs for later. And we never almost got to play the whole song because the police would show up before we could finish it. Unbelievable how that happened. And so there you go, Lord of this World. I kept hoping to get to the da-na-na-na-na, Lord of this World, da-na-na-na, that part. That's like my favorite part. And it's, oh God, what a great song.
Yeah, that's one of those things. The urban legend. I promise we can play Lord of this World. It's just that the cops don't let us get to it. So
true, so true. It's been years since I played that stuff.
Very cool. What was the first Sabbath album you owned?
Wow, since my brother lived in my house, I didn't really have to own any of them because he had them all. I think I'm going to go with Technical Ecstasy. I think that's the first one I actually bought, because that was 76. I'm going to go 76. That's the first time I saw Sabbath. Was on that tour. I wasn't quite 16 yet. My buddy, I had a lot of friends who were older than me, which is kind of a good thing when you're young because they can drive and stuff. So we got tickets. We got tickets to see Black Sabbath at the Long Beach Sports Arena, and I remember our tickets were $4.75, and we were sitting up in a word that we're probably not supposed to say that starts with an N, heaven, up in the way up there in that Long Beach Sports Arena. And I know you and Mark talked about the Long Beach Sports Arena not being a big arena. Oh, it's a big arena. Okay.
Is it? Okay.
It's legit. But anyway, we're sitting way the hell up there. But I'm thinking, man, we paid less than $5 to go to this concert. I can't quite remember who opened up. I think it was some kind of weird band, like almost country, a Southern rock band called Point Blank, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, which is kind of weird. Yeah, back in the 70s, you get these weird matching of bands. It wasn't like now where it's like, oh, every band has to be in this genre kind of a thing. But Sabbath was awesome. I remember that night they were just so good. And one of the highlights was Ozzy doing his impression of Linda Blair from The Exorcist. And he would kind of break that out in between songs. And I remember him doing that. He had that voice nailed, and he would do that, "Your mother sucks cocks in hell," or whatever. Anyway, yeah, Ozzy was having a blast. Tony was, they were having a good time. And
they were feeling no pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Actually had Ozzy actually called in a little earlier. He wanted to give you a special message.
Okay.
That's from a bootleg. I believe it's from, I forget if it's either from Japan or from Castle Donington from a Monsters of Rock tour. But that's the intro to Bark at the Moon, actually. He does that, and then he says Bark at the Moon, and they go on into the track. But that's off of, if I'm not mistaken, Jakey Lee's first tour. Well, it may not be the first tour, because the drummer sounds like Tommy Aldridge to me as opposed to Carmine. So at least the fills and everything else really sound like Tommy. Tommy's got a very specific feel and a way that he plays. A lot of times when people say best guitarist, best drummer, best bass player, every player has just a different. It's kind of in your DNA. You play things kind of differently. And even if you want to mimic someone, it's never the same. Oh, okay. We will, Brad will be back. He needs to take a time out currently, but he'll be back. He isn't being punished. He's actually jumping in between calls, but let's see. So Jose up in Connecticut is saying that he's on YouTube this week. Hello, sir. I don't know. Everything kind of started off kind of weird. Our countdown didn't work right, and we kind of jumped into stuff late. So, but anyway, we've got it all going now, and So I was kind of talking about how, you have all these things with favorite drummer would be more apropos as opposed to best. About like 2 years ago, I realized that with music, things are so subjective that to say, best album of this year, it's my favorite album of the year, because there's just so much out there, and it's all a matter of opinion. Let's be honest. So, I don't see the need to say best. But getting back to my point, you listen to a lot of that Sabbath stuff early on, and they were such a tremendous band. I know that they got slagged a lot by Led Zeppelin. And there was a podcast that was really funny that was called Dead Rock Stars, and it was Mick Wall, who used to be on Kerrang, or used to write for Kerrang and a bunch of other magazines, and he's got another podcast now, which I haven't checked out yet. And the other presenter, Ian something. I was going to say Ian McKay, but that's the guy from Minor Threat. But anyway. He was Black Sabbath's PR person on the road with them while during the Heaven and Hell tour. And he recounts all of these stories about the Led Zeppelin guys coming and visiting the Sabbath guys. And just hearing him imitate Bill Ward is just spectacular. It's just ridiculous. I love Bill Ward as a drummer, especially that stuff that he did back then. Just so unique, just so many things that he overdubbed and different things that so many other drummers were not doing. It's interesting just to think about Birmingham, England, how important it is to hard rock and metal, because you do have Sabbath. You have Judas Priest that's from there as well. And you have Led Zeppelin that's from there. And that's without, discussing all of the other bands that have, been that have come and gone that aren't as big from Birmingham. So so it's interesting how all of that plays out. Just one city is really kind of the epicenter to the entire thing. So again, Bill Ward, one of my favorites. You look back at Geezer Butler as well as a bass player. There was all this stuff that came out recently with and I mentioned this during if you subscribe to Mark Striegel's Patreon, I do a recap show for him. And there have been a bunch of different Sabbath related things that I've talked about recently. One of them is the Jeff Nichols estate releasing an early form of the song Heaven and Hell with Jeff on bass. And I guess one of the things that Geezer Butler said was that he never would have come up with such a simplistic bass part. But sometimes simpler things just work. You think about a song like Paranoid. Paranoid isn't overly, it isn't overly technical, but it works. It's 3 minutes of a musical masterpiece. You may be sick of hearing it now, but, it doesn't take away from how great that track actually is. So, let's see. Jose is saying that absolutely similar things happens with sports. Some things you can qualify, but others are subjective. It's kind of a similar deal because you can have a favorite athlete. It drives me nuts over here with soccer, football, however you want to call it, that they have people that will still profess that someone is the greatest and that others are not. So it's kind of the same deal. So let's see. Brad may be back with us. All right. Right on time. Brad is
I am back. Here's the funny thing is that I kept trying to talk to the caller through the mic here. that ain't working too well.
Right,
guy. I'm spinning plates here. I need the Saber song. Which, by the way, Accept used to do in their live concerts. They do the excerpt of that, which, Wolf Hoffman is really big on any kind of classical music type stuff.
Right.
So.
One of my I've been uploading the podcasting nightmares to Patreon, and he's actually one of the worst interviews that I've had.
Oh my!
There was a problem with.
But
there you go, the crocus shirt.
Yeah. The shirt that I won, guy. Holy crap! That's 15 years ago, 2005. Oh wow, does time fly?
Yeah, Jeremy. Thankfully, you asked for him to show his shirt and not. Well, although I will say that Brad sent a picture of someone posing as Bill Hudson yesterday from a concert, and Brad said that it was him shirtless on stage playing guitar. So I was going to say it's a good thing you asked him to show him the shirt and not take it off.
Nobody wants to see that.
Oh, wow. We have podcasting royalty. We have Mr. Chris Sinzak joining us.
Very cool.
Chris from the Decibel Geek podcast and the Nashville Rock and Pod Expo in the event that you guys don't know, if it isn't really a secret, but I do the web design for the Rock and Pod Expo, and we'll have some additional announcements coming this weekend about some podcasts that will be joining us and other cool news coming up along the way. And just to since you did join us, Chris, let me pimp the site real quick here. Although I will say that David Ellison did not like when I used the term pimp. So.
Oh, come on, Dave.
Yeah. I said,
it's a business term.
I said, is there anything else that you want to pimp out? He's like, I don't pimp anything. I'm like, whoa, hey, oh, excuse me. So, Rockin' Pod Expo happening August 6th through 8th. And with special guests, Billy Sheehan, Don Jameson, Ron Keel, Jason Beeler, Christopher Williams, Tommy Skiich. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Skio.
Okay. So
yes, thanks for being Mark Striegel on that.
Okay. I've been pronouncing it incorrectly my entire life. His new band, Resistant Bite, will be playing the pre-show. Also, Walter Egan, Sandy Gennaro, Anthony Corder of Tora Tora, and Gary Corbett, who's played with Kiss, Cinderella, Cyndi Lauper. He co-wrote the song She Bop, if people don't know, amongst other things. And just a lot of cool stuff. Here are some of the podcasts that have been announced so far. I'll list it a little bit down further. Here's the great venue, the Holiday Inn. Hilton. No. Jesus, I'm thinking of Kiss here. I'm thinking of Living in Sin at the Holiday Inn. My bad. This is the Hilton Nashville Airport. My bad. And we ask that you please reserve via that because it helps the expo out if you go to the Hilton and reserve your stay there. Also, it allows you to get sloshed and not get into any trouble. So,
great. Hey, Chris. By the way, I'm Brad. Nice to meet you. I'm really considering going to this just because it sounds, number one, because it sounds really cool. Number two, it'd be really cool if Victor could get there, but I know that would be really difficult for him to do that. But I'm seriously looking at coming to this thing. So, and it would be nice to meet you, Chris.
Cool. I know that Mark said that he was going to make the effort to go, but we'll see. I think that would be awesome. I think it's a great event. I mean, if I could swing it, I would definitely go. When you were offline there for a second, I was talking about how important Birmingham is to hard rock and metal, because we were talking about Sabbath, Sabbath, Priest, and Led Zeppelin, all from that area, but all from Birmingham. So, I mean, if you really think of the melting pot, this is funny. Mr. Sinzak, I sent him, I said, if you want to join us, I sent him the link. And he says, he's not decent. Okay.
yeah. We've got the whole made for TV thing going on here, don't we?
Yeah. Well, it's no one is coming a calling. You're giving me like an Eddie Trunk response. I have to wash my hair tonight. I cannot do it.
I mean, I just got done working out. I got the 80s hairband thing going here. But the crocus shirt really makes up for everything on my side.
Okay. So see, this is the reason why I had asked Jeremy if he wanted to join us today. There are a few other cities that are metal homes in the UK. Now, this is something that I really want to talk to Jeremy about. I was actually trying to also get Richie from Focus on Metal to come on. Richie is from Ireland. Mr. Sinzak, I have next week's show booked. I'm kidding. We'll see. I got Drew Fortier coming on next week, so maybe we could make it a class reunion. We'll see. They've got Dwellers just came out. They're premiering it tonight in Nashville, or not in Nashville, North Carolina. Him and David Ellefson, and their audio book version of the book that he wrote with David Ellefson is just premiered too. So Drew's coming back. I've got Monty Pittman coming March 5th, and what's the other one? I'm trying to work on Guillermo from Angela Sapatrida, who was close to coming on tonight, but there was a few there was a miscommunication. So possibly sometime in March that will happen. So we'll see. Okay, so Chris is saying he will come on and harass Drew next week. There you go. But Jeremy apparently is not feeling well. He's he pulled something in his neck. I said he's been headbanging too much, and has happened to mess his neck up somehow. So I know what that's like. I hope you do get better. Jeremy, as usual, is one of the faithful. I think him and my cousin Jose have not missed a show yet. So I'm very grateful for them being here, as well as Mr. Dahl, who's with us once again this week. As far as with bands in the UK, he's saying that obviously there are other homes for UK metal. Obviously, you have London is obviously important. I mean, as far as I remember, Maiden labels themselves as being from London, but that's kind of like AC/DC being from Ireland when they're actually from Scotland. It's one of those things. Okay, Sheffield and Newcastle. You're totally right, because Sheffield, we have Def Leppard that's from there. Big fans of Sheffield Wednesday. And Newcastle, give us an example of a band from Newcastle that we would all know.
Ooh.
Is Newcastle known for more than just their beer and Dennis Bergkamp? Newcastle was Neat Records. Okay, so that makes sense.
Isn't Brian Johnson from Newcastle?
Raven. Okay. I think Brian Johnson, it's another one of those things where I believe he's, again, listed that he's from London, but it's one of those things where it's a catch-all, Okay, so Mr. Sinzak is saying the Wild Hearts, Ginger Wildheart and Company. Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson is from Dunstan.
Okay, fine.
Dunstan, United Kingdom, which is...
Yeah, he was the singer in Geordie, Jeremy.
Yes.
Here's something I really admire about, or I like about people in the UK, is that where you grew up or where you're from is a big thing. Right. I feel like here in the U.S. it's kind of like we're trying to be too homogenized. It's like you can't. It's not politically correct to say one place is better than the other, or it's like, where are you from?
Right.
You get in trouble for asking people that. And anyway, I really like that in the UK. I like that people have pride for where they grew up.
And it turns out that you are correct, because Dunstan is right across the river from Newcastle upon Tyne. So he's essentially from Newcastle. Tigers of Pang Tang, who have released a bunch of great albums. See, that's another band that we were kind of talking about, Saxon previously, and Crocus and stuff like that, bands that have been around for a while that have been releasing solid material. Tigers of Pang Tang, I've really paid attention to their last two albums, which have been outstanding. I mean, it was just one of those things where they're the album that they released, I think it was in 2018. I was like, okay, I'll begrudgingly listen to this just to see if there's anything that I kind of like off of it. And I started listening to it, and I was like, oh, wow, I like that track. I like this other track, and it ended up snowballing into me liking like half of the album. And then their next album came out, which I think was last year.
Mhm.
It was kind of a similar deal. It was one of those things where, don't let me down. I hope that they can continue the streak. And it was cool. They totally did. So Tiger's another definite example. I wanted to circle back a little to our initial, metal formed around the working class areas and cities. Absolutely. I think that's the case for everywhere around the world. Because if you look at it, Scorpions are from Hamburg. That's like the industrial north of Germany. That's one of their biggest port cities as well. You look at Australia, Melbourne, if I'm not mistaken, is quote unquote where AC/DC and Airborne and In Excess are from, if I'm not mistaken. Again, a huge port city, as much as it's known for its city and its culture, it's also, got a lot of blue collar, working class atmosphere to it. So, Jeremy, you are completely correct. You are correct, sir. Circling back to the Sabbath thing, I believe that the first thing that I owned by Sabbath was Sabotage. And it was one of these deals where I think it was, it wasn't a Two Guys, but it was something like a James Way or a Bradley's or something like that, which was a chain store. I don't know if they had that out on the West Coast, but they were definitely in the New York area. And back then, Sabbath had all these issues with their original manager. So you had stuff like Live at Last, and you had a series of cassette. Well, I got that on cassette. You had a series of albums that were released that were like really cheap versions. Like the inlays really didn't have any information. It was like kind of black, and the cassette that I had was blank. Like it didn't have anything printed on the outside. So I remember having to write like side A and B on it to know what was what, more or less. That was the first thing that I got from them. And you had mentioned last week about Symptom of the Universe needing to have that acoustic intro. A few weeks back, I was listening to tracks off of that and just remembering what it was like as a very impressionable, 17, 18-year-old, having that cassette and driving around in a car, listening to that and just remembering the entire flow of that album, from Hole in the Sky to that acoustic part that went to, Symptom of the Universe to stuff that was really out there, stuff like The Ritz, stuff like Am I Going Insane, which are completely different. And it showed, how you didn't need to be a one-trick pony, how a lot of bands are today. I think I mentioned this last week, how, I demoed a bunch of songs and how I was told, that they need to sound more alike. Like, I grew up listening to Sabbath and Zeppelin and Kiss and even AC/DC. No two AC/DC songs on a specific album sounded alike. So, I think all the music back then definitely had a lot more variety. So let's see. Jeremy is saying that, I remember hearing the first Sabbath album. It blew my mind, but I didn't buy it until Heaven and Hell. But I didn't buy one until Heaven and Hell. So I had Sabotage. I got Technical Ecstasy at a secondhand music store that at the time was like gobbling up all the vinyl from the local radio stations. So my vinyl copy of Technical Ecstasy has a stamp on it that says not for resale, radio station, whatever, copy only or whatever, promotional copy only, something along those lines. I bought a ton of stuff like that from that store. I think I got Thin Lizzy's Live and Dangerous from there as well, and a bunch of other things. But the other kind of cool thing, and maybe I'll make this one of the Patreon albums of the week, is I have a Black Sabbath greatest hits album called The Blackest of Sabbath. And it has, excuse me, side one. Oh, Brad needs to take another time out there. But so the first vinyl is all Ozzy material. The second vinyl is Dio stuff with, I believe it's one Ian Gillan song. I believe it's Digital Bitch. And then it's a bunch of Tony Martin stuff from The Eternal Idol. So that was my introduction to a lot of the Tony Martin stuff. It was also my intro to some of the Dio stuff because, as a kid, I couldn't buy, everything that I wanted to. I hadn't picked up, Mob Rules or Heaven and Hell yet. And Dehumanizer, which I absolutely love, was like a year or two away. So that greatest hits was like my gateway into that stuff. Obviously, once I got Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, it was me jumping in head first into all of that stuff. And it's obviously different now. I saw Greg Renoff post like a stack of cassettes that were copied from a friend of his. And, he posted something to the effect of, do you remember a friend that had all of, their entire collection was copied? I didn't have that. I had friends that had a lot of, stuff that I didn't have. So we obviously traded stuff back and forth. But when vinyl kind of started going out of circulation, I started picking up vinyl left and right. I got Heaven and Hell on vinyl. I later got Mob Rules on cassette because when, same thing happened to cassette. Again, it's different today with all the streaming services where you can kind of sample all of this stuff and listen to it now. But, back then, having to save up to get an album and making sure that it was worth your while, because you wanted to make sure that it was a good investment. And that investment, you wanted to make sure that like every song was really good. And not every album was great, but I remember picking up a lot of these things and memorizing lyrics right away. And maybe it's just being old and not being able to memorize lyrics as good as I could in the past. How about that? So, so I see that there are a few people that are liking this in Facebook, and I did post there is a link there on Facebook that you need to click on if you want me to see you or your comments in our chat here. It's just Facebook's Fugazi rules that they have where, for whatever reason, they don't like sharing with other things and you have to approve so that you can use it. So let's see, Jeremy, exactly. I used to buy singles a lot. You really had to be sure before spending your money. Now, see, in the UK, the singles were always there. In the States, we didn't have that as much. They tried to do that in the 90s with the cassette single, for example, and then the CD single, kind of. But I remember always coming overseas and seeing all of these great singles, like Maiden singles and singles from all types of British bands that never made it stateside because the being on the charts was such a big deal. I think for metal or hard rock bands in the States, not only did labels not do it, but I don't think it was a priority. Now, obviously, things have changed over the years, and now you have, with streaming, you have bands releasing singles and different things before a full album comes out, and that's kind of the norm now. I responded to Jamie Josta yesterday on Twitter because he was giving props to Gojira releasing their new single. When was that? On Wednesday, I believe. And he said something like, "Oh, the Suits messed it up by changing release date to Friday." Release day used to be Friday in the States until some point in the 80s where, someone got in their mind, well, we want to be different from everyone else. So instead of having release day on Fridays, they switched it to Tuesdays. But then what would end up happening is an album would come out on Friday in the UK, and with the advent of Napster and torrent sites, people started downloading these albums because they wouldn't wait for the US release. And vice versa. An album would be released in the States on Tuesday, wouldn't come out in the UK until Friday, so that it would lend itself to people downloading the stuff. And that's not even getting into, Roadrunner and Nuclear Blast releasing albums 6 months apart in different continents. So the whole Tuesday Friday thing was something that was just happening in the States for like since the late 80s, let's say. So it's a few decades, but it makes sense from a promotional standpoint. And also, you have to figure most people, especially in the States, get paid on a Thursday or a Friday. What that means is that they have more disposable income on that Friday to pick up an album if they want to. The whole pre-order thing, it's existed for some time, but guys, how many people rushed out to Best Buy, on the day that something was released, or to Walmart or to Target, because they were factored in over the years to get some type of exclusive, maybe an exclusive shirt or an exclusive, CD, which had additional content. Maybe it had an unreleased track. Maybe it had some live material that wasn't there, on the standard edition. So it's changed over the years. And, I'm talking about what it was like for me as a kid and as a, young adult growing up and what we would do to listen to things. But man, I'm cognizant of what's going on now. I mean, as much as I love vinyl, I don't buy absolutely everything on vinyl. And, I try to pick up as much as I can on digital format just because it's easier to get around and navigate and listen to this stuff. So, and Mr. Dahl is back. So, I was just discussing how I responded to a tweet by Jamie Josta of Hatebreed, who's complaining that the release dates in the States have changed from Tuesdays to Fridays, when back in the 80s, up until the 80s, it was Fridays in the States, and they decided, just to be different, that they would shift it to Tuesdays. It took them 2 decades to realize that by having release dates on 2 different days the rest of the world was Friday, the US was Tuesday. It meant that more people were downloading stuff off of the internet instead of going out and picking stuff up. So, I mean, his argument even kind of works against what he's trying to do in, his band business. So, I mean, I don't know. Just didn't seem like a smart comment to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And I heard you talking about how, when we were young and you'd run out to, you'd get your money on Friday and you'd run to the record store and buy stuff. And then, of course, you'd have all weekend to listen to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a big event back then. Now, I mean, when something comes out, I'll wait a couple of days. I mean, I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm not even sure I want to keep buying CDs because very few places I can listen to them. My car does not have a CD player. That's how forward-thinking Volvo is. It's like, well, we don't need CD players in these cars anymore.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm still buying CDs just to have them stack up somewhere. It'll be a nice gift for somebody when I die. Maybe I'll will them to you, Victor. There's some really cool stuff in there. But but yeah, I don't know. I do like looking at the liner notes and all that kind of stuff. I still like reading all of those things. But as far as when stuff comes out, I don't know that it really matters anymore.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think with the advent of, being able to pre-order and have stuff shipped to your house the day it comes out, or even release it, or even receive it before it comes out, I think it's really taken that entire factor out of it. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's just the way that the market has evolved. And let's be honest. I watched that Tower Records documentary, and this may be an unpopular opinion, but I remember Tower Records being very expensive, and I bought very few things there unless it was like a cutout bin CD, or if it was something that was on sale, because new CD on sale for $18.99. It's like, why am I going to pay $18.99 when I can go to Best Buy and buy it for $9.99? Well, the whole experience of coming into a Tower Records, seriously. So instead of being able to pick up 3 CDs, the experience is going to equal me just buying 1 CD. I mean, that just doesn't translate well to me, So, and it wasn't, okay. So let's see. We got Jose saying that Tower Records was mad expensive. Exactly. Chris Sinzak is saying Tower was only good for their listening station. I'd go to different stores to purchase what I liked. Yeah, totally. That's kind of, if you really think about it, that's kind of what has ended up happening with Amazon. If you really analyze things, let's see. Jeremy says, same here. I'd like CDs because I like the physical product. It's still great getting a new CD in the post. Tower and HMV were expensive here. I used a local independent. See, HMV, I'd only been to HMV twice in New York. The reason that I ever bought anything there is because they would have an import section that would have things that were, out of the norm. Like I picked up, I'm a big fan of the band Bad Religion. They had a live album that was only released in Europe. It wasn't released in the States. So I remember picking that up there. I also remember picking up a few other CDs that were European imports because they had an additional live CD in them that wasn't available in the States. I think I picked up the Cult self-titled CD from there and Body Count's second album for that reason. So if you're giving me something like that, okay, I'll splurge the extra money. But again, if it's $18.99 for something I can pick up somewhere else, the experience doesn't mean jack to me. Amazon for me has been a lifesaver because on many fronts here, just having to deal with curmudgeon salespeople, cutting that out, or going to a local store and getting fleeced. When say what you want about what Amazon has to offer, or what they do, or whatnot. I know a lot of people are against them nowadays. But again, if I'm purchasing something for $10 and the next closest shop is selling it for 30, I'm going to look after my wallet first. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, back in the day, it was an event going to the record store because there's no internet. You found out about stuff in rock magazines months after it happened. That's where you found about new releases, because where else are you going to hear it? Maybe some radio stations would be hip enough to tell you, like, hey, there's a new album out, and they would play something off it. So I would regularly go to a local record store just to kind of thumb through and see what they've got there. And the one I'd like to go to is a chain in the Los Angeles area called Licorice Pizza, which is kind of a nice play on what an album looked like. But the other cool thing was they had baskets of fresh black licorice all over the store. So you could you could be eating licorice while you're like thumbing through stuff. And the people that worked there were generally pretty cool and knowledgeable. And they would play, they're always playing music. And so you come in and you could talk to them about things. They go, well, here, let me put this on if that's the kind of music you like. Maybe you haven't heard this. And they would play you an album. And also, if you bought an album and you got it home and you didn't like it, they would take it back, which was pretty impressive. Yeah. So, one band I was in the 70s, they'd want to play a song by a band I didn't really care for. So I'd go out and buy the album just to learn the one song, and then I'd bring it back. To get my money back. Probably not real ethical, but oh well, But yeah, going to the record store, and I that's where I learned about a lot of new music and saw a lot of bands. I mean, I think Iron Maiden, the Killers album, because I'd never heard anything about these guys. I was in the record store and I saw this, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And of course, the cover back then, it was kind of like, I don't know, man, this looks kind of goofy. It's all cartoonish. I'm not really sure, but yet, doggone it, it's supposed to be metal, so I'm going to get it, and the rest is history. So,
yeah. Oh, did Amoeba exist when you were living out there?
No Amoeba. Tower Records was kind of a latecomer that came probably real late 70s, maybe early 80s. I only remember really going to Tower when I would come back to LA after moving here, and then was looking for buying product, because they were the biggest store. They had the most stuff.
Right.
And you're right. Their prices weren't that great, but you would be able to find things there. I mean, and how about that? Back in the day when you couldn't just order something up on the internet, it's like, well, I know this band, like Riot. Okay, Riot's got an album out, and I really want to hear this thing. Hardly anybody's carrying it. So you would have to go from record store to record store to record store to try to find it. And that in itself was an event. It was cool, especially if you had a buddy or something. It's like, hey, let's go track this thing down, and then let's take it home and listen to it. And you put it on, you'd listen to the whole thing. And now it's kind of like, you download something, and it's like, I'll listen to it when I get time. And I don't know, maybe that's just me.
Let's see. Jeremy says, we had Penny Lane Records, a real rock specialist. I walked in once, an Attack of the Mad Axe Man was on. I just said to the store guy straight away, I'll have that single, and walked straight out with it. That's so cool.
I love Jeremy, man. He is a true rock fan. Jeremy, I want to hang out with you, man. We got to make this happen.
Yeah, we had, where I grew up in New Jersey, we had some small stores. It kind of, with the advent of CD, there were more things that sprung up. I know Steve Hoker, who's on Patreon, he often talks about, there's a store up by him where he lived called Alwick. They had a lot of weird stuff that you couldn't find anywhere else. A lot of they actually had CD singles when they first came out. So, there were maybe 4 locations that were within an hour and change for me. So, as a late teen, hey, let's drive up to all the Alwicks and see what we can find. But outside of that, we basically had the equivalent. We didn't have a Tower that was close, but we had the Wall, which was a precursor to what FYE is now. The FYE bought them out, and we had a series of stores like that. Way back when I was really small, we did have a bunch of different record stores in the local mall, but as the mall started to become corporate, those stores started to fade away. But Yeah, your typical Sam Goodies and things like that. So we didn't really have like, places where you could go in and, as Jeremy's saying, you weren't finding Michael Schenker anywhere there. So nonetheless, they weren't playing Attack of the Mad Axe Man. The closest thing to something being like odd, like hard rock related, would be like there was a picture disc for I think the single for Lick It Up or All Hell's Breaking Loose, where the one side was the Kiss tank and the other side was I think it was the Kiss Army logo. And then there was I think it was a single for I Love It Loud, where one side was the song and the other side it was the first time I'd ever seen it. Like it was completely like etched. That the other side had like the Kiss logo and like it had the 4 band members had signed the other side. It was like their signatures were etched into the vinyl. So let's see. Mr. Sinzak here saying my main spots were Great Escape Nashville, Sam Goody, and CD Warehouse. And let's see. Jose is saying I got my Def Leppard pin at the mall record store. It is also where you could buy tickets for concerts. Yeah, that was like one of the only independent stores that we had. That was up in the Ledgewood Mall there. And I don't remember the name. Steve Hoker may remember it. Yeah, that was the days of having to stand in line for the bracelets and the concert tickets and all that great stuff. But yeah, that store I got a bunch of Iron Maiden cassette singles on import. Oh, Rockaway. Okay. What store in Rockaway? Bottom floor. Because the only one, well, I mean, there used to be years and years ago, there was something called a Harmony Hut, which was records and musical instruments, and that was like late 70s, early 80s, and I bought the Gene Simmons solo album there for like $3.99 as a kid. Okay, downstairs near J.C. Penney's. That was the Wall, if I'm not mistaken. And it may have had another name before that because it went through a bunch of different names before it was moved upstairs to become FYE. Let's see. Jeremy, we had Virgin Megastore as well, of course, and a few smaller shops. W.H. Smith and Woolworth sold a lot of records. That's right, tickets at record stores. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, there was a Virgin Megastore in Times Square, New York that I loved going to because it was so massive and it always had CDs on sale, and it always had, like, for example, I bought the second Degeneration album, the one that Rick Ocasek from the Cars produced, and I got like a free t-shirt that had like the Degeneration logo and like a woman behind it, and it was like her face, and like it's kind of like the the black rectangle to make someone anonymous. It was the Degeneration logo going across her eyes. I loved going to that Virgin Megastore. I remember they closed that when I moved overseas here to Spain, and I went back and I really wanted to go there, and I was like heartbroken that it was closed. We actually had one here. There were actually a bunch of them in Spain. They were even in the airport in Madrid, and one by one they just started all shutting down. I remember I spent so much money one winter that I came over here on vacation, that the store just started, they just started giving me stuff every time that they saw me walk through the door. So it was kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. It has been kind of neat kind of rebuilding my my playlist and stuff through Apple Music these last few weeks, because I am finding that a lot of the hard to find stuff that maybe I didn't track down as a kid, or even stuff that I had, I'm seeing that a lot of it is now available. So I haven't had to include a lot of my own stuff to kind of build up my collection and have it take up like a lot of space. So for me though, I mean, I'd always search out whenever Iron Maiden would come out with something. I'd always pick up. I'd always pick up, a vinyl or a cassette single because they were never available. Whenever they released an album, I was always on the lookout for that stuff. And I know that people aren't, sometimes people complain about picture discs or, the singles that aren't actually round. I have a few of them where they're cut out into special shapes. As a collector standpoint, I always thought that those were cool. Does it sound as good as the actual album? Probably not. But just the coolness factor of having that and being able to show it off, I always thought it was neat. So maybe it's just me. And coming over to Europe, when I'd come over on vacation, I'd always try to stock up on stuff that wasn't available in the States. For example, today, one of the albums that was released today was Ricky Warwick's new album. Just give a gander at the new releases here. But
yeah, which, by the way, that's one of the many things that you do that I love, Victor, is I love the new releases. And again, all those videos you put out, there's so much music you've turned me on to. So thank you for doing all that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome to hear. Because I love turning people onto different bands, or, remind people that a band that maybe they love has just released something. Maybe people weren't aware of that, because one thing that just drives me nuts, you'll have, I don't know, Judas Priest put something out. Yeah, man, I have their last album, Painkiller. I loved it so much. It's like, they've released like 6 albums since then. It just happens. Not everyone is Jakey Lee and Vinnie Vincent.
Yeah.
Not everyone just disappears for decades. But so Ricky Warwick released a new solo album today. And I first got to know Ricky from The Almighty. I love The Almighty so much that when I came over to Spain on vacation in '96, one of the first things that I searched out was an album by The Almighty called Crank is the name of the album. Crank is one of my all-time favorite albums to have come out in the 90s as a result. I found it on cassette. I couldn't find it on CD at that time for the life of me. I ended up getting it on Japanese import like years later. But man, this album was so good, and it wasn't released in the States. So there was that. I remember there's a British band called Skunk and Nancy that their second album, Stoosh, which to me is my favorite album of theirs as well, that I was able to pick up. There were a bunch of different things that, while I was here, I'm like, okay, well, this isn't out there. I might as well pick it up. I might as well, check it out and take it back home. And as Chris Sinzak pointed out, having anything at a listening station to be able to check it out first was a bonus, because if you were on the fence about something, you were able to hear it, then, you would know if it would make sense to pick it up. But anyway, the Ricky Warwick here, I did something new here, which I took some of the feedback that the patrons have been leaving on Patreon. So as Brad has mentioned, on Patreon, I am posting, it's usually at least 2 videos a day. It can be 2, it could be 3. And if there's like a bunch of things that come out that I think that people will like, so I'll just start posting the stuff and just see people's reactions, as well as, exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else. There's a few different podcasts. There are episodes of classic podcast episodes that aren't available anywhere else that I'm uploading, and so on and so forth. So a band, Coronary, out of Finland, released an album, and I purposely posted a video of theirs earlier this week to get people's comments. And so I have comments from some of the diehards. I have from a patron that goes by the initials of BD. Not sure if anyone knows who that might be. I have a JW listed in here as well, and an MJ. So they're part of the diehard faithful here. They are submitting comments all the time about all these great songs. If you want to do so, $2 a month gets you into the club per se, and plenty of cool content if you're looking to check out new music, and just great. It's a great community and a great way to talk and chat about music. No trolls or anything. There's, I don't know. I really enjoy going back and forth with everybody and just adding different things. We do our weekly "What are you listening to this week?" Section, where we check in and see what people are, listening to or watching on TV, and just helping spread the love of just the different things that we have going on. So it's funny. There were supposed to be 200 something new releases in the first part of the year, and things are just still trickling out. There wasn't a whole heck of a lot of new things to come out today. There were a few reissues, a few vinyl reissues, and Crocus actually released a live album today. So
what?
They released Adios Amigos live at Wacken.
Cool.
So,
I'm going to get that. Yeah. Hey, Victor.
Yes.
Since I'm not on a call, can I take a moment and pimp something?
Absolutely.
I'm going to punch out so I don't get a call here. Sorry, coworkers. They'll just have to man up. That's probably not PC either to say that. So I did an interview this week with this kid. Didn't know he was a kid who has a new album out called Trojan Warfare. That's the name of the band.
Okay.
You can find the interview on the Yarg Metal YouTube channel. It's just the audio, but I do throw some pictures up there to make it a little interesting. But anyway, this kid, he contacted us. I still don't know exactly how I found this, and was like, hey, I got an album coming out, and, maybe you guys would be interested in it. And I got to say, it's only 7 songs, but I like it a lot. It's very kind of unique rock stuff and ranging. He actually has Ross the Boss playing lead on one of the songs, which is way cool.
Right.
So if you guys had checked that out, let me know what you think. I think that'd be cool. I mean, we talk about, we keep hearing from Mark that rock really is dead, and it's just all us old white guys. And you know what? This is a 17-year-old kid who plays guitar. He wrote all the songs. His 13-year-old brother plays drums on this stuff, and it's actually good. Yeah, there he is there. Nice kid, super nice kid. And he's in New Jersey. He's actually, Montclair area? Okay. You know where that is? Yeah. So I really think that it's our duty as rock fans to support kids that are trying to make rock music. So I think it'd be great if you guys checked it out. If you want to download his album, it's only $5 from Bandcamp. You can just download it. There's no physical copy of this. And I'm giving it like a 100% satisfaction guarantee. We're playing songs off it on a regular basis right now on Yarg Metal. So check it out. And like I said, let me know what you think, and let's support kids who want to play guitar and want to rock, because otherwise it's just going to be all us old dudes talking about the old days and watching people in the bands we like die.
Yeah.
So,
He actually reached out to me earlier this week, so I gotta follow up with him. That
yeah,
knowing that you spoke to him, that's a plus.
In the interview itself, the sound quality was not great. I started channeling Mark there. It's like, I'm not doing any more, phoners, and because of the sound quality. And the poor kid, he's just like, well, he says my room is like the furthest from the Wi-Fi, and this is as good as it's going to get. And I think it's still listenable, but it's not what I would like to hear. So, and this kid's working his ass off to promote this stuff too. I really admire that. And I really admire his parents for supporting this, because holy crap, that's brilliant. I want to meet those people. So so check it out. And yeah, Victor, if you get a chance, man, hit him up. He'll hit you right back. He's working this 24/7. He's only 17. He's a junior in high school, man. Wow. And he's putting out albums.
That's awesome.
It's very, very cool. All right. So that's my I'm going to punch back in over here. If I get a call, I get a call. But all right, back to what you were talking about.
Yeah, well, we're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes anyway. I just wanted to mention that I did post episode 200 of Mars Attacks today, which does feature Mr. Brad Dahl, and it also features Mark Striegel. It's last week's live stream. What I've been doing is uploading the live stream to YouTube and the audio on the days of the live stream. So kind of a reminder to people that we are doing the live shows that night. If other interviews come up, I'll post those throughout the week as well. Want to remind you guys once again about Yarg Metal, currently In the Name of Tragedy by Motorhead. Such a cool song. I remember hearing that, and my wife bought me a live DVD for Christmas one year where they play the song live, and it's really cool to hear them play it live as well. It's not your typical thing. It's funny where people will say, oh, Motorhead just sounded exactly the same throughout their career. Yeah, you weren't really paying attention then, because there are different eras of the band where they sound slightly differently. And with Mickey D joining the band, you have songs like In the Name of Tragedy or Sacrifice or stuff like that, which have monster drum tracks to them. So.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I'm not a Motorhead aficionado. I've seen him a couple of times. So yeah, if anybody out there has like favorite Motorhead tracks that are not the Ace of Spades,
right?
Send me those songs, and I'll play them, because I also want to learn more about them, and I've got such a backlog of music. But in fact, anything cool that anybody's listening to, if you want to hit me to it, I will share it with the world.
Cool. I may take you up on that offer.
Thank you.
The other thing that I wanted to mention real quick, that I got an email for this today, and I kind of couldn't believe it when I kind of fleshed out what was going on here. Let's see if I can get the full screen. It kind of looks as if Dave Mustaine is going to Gibson Guitars, which is kind of a huge get for them. We talked about them getting Gene Simmons a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And now having Mustaine, and I've seen a leaked video where someone may have spotted the prototype, and it's kind of cool to see a flying V with like sharp V edges, and the headstock is the hockey stick more Explorer type. So sure, they've done this like on Epiphones and Kramers in the past, but not an official Gibson. So it'll be really cool to see.
Yeah, they have new management there, and they're younger dudes, and maybe there's some ladies in there too. But I think they're going to be coming on strong here in the future. They're doing a lot of stuff to promote that. And being a longtime Gibson fan, and it's funny, I don't actually own one. I'm really excited. I probably said this last time about the Gene Simmons basses, And
Right.
they said they've got a V bass coming out, a Gene Simmons V. And so I've always wanted a Gibson V bass, and so I'm probably gonna jump on that if it looks as cool as the one that they've already promoted, the one that he actually had in Dubai.
The Firebird.
Yeah, thank you, Thunderbird. Yeah, Thunderbird. Yeah, the red and black. Yeah, it came in red and black and black and silver. I of course would go for red and black.
Yeah, I don't know why they haven't done more with releasing their classic shapes for basses, the classic guitar bodies, because I remember in the 90s at one point you had Tom Hamilton playing a Les Paul bass, and that kind of came and went. You really, the Explorer, there were more Hamer Explorer basses than there were Gibson Explorer basses. And sure, there are some V's over the years, but few and far between. It just seems like they totally missed out on that market, where they could have really made a greater impact.
Yeah. I was in Memphis in 1983, I think, at a music store, and they had a Gibson Flying V bass, and I played it, and it was like fantastic, but I had no money. And I think the new price on it back then was $400 something bucks.
Right.
I mean, that thing would probably be worth thousands now.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm all about the Flying V, probably because of Michael Schenker and some of the other great V players out there.
Right.
But we'll see what happens. But I think in the bass world, most basses, it's like Fender, and it's all about Fender, and it's all about guys trying to remake the Fender bass. And me, not so much. I think the only thing I own that's close to a Fender is that new Frank Bello bass, because that's very Fenderish. Yeah. Yeah,
it really looks. It's like a P bass, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very close to a P bass. As certainly the neck is a lot thinner and easier to play. The old P basses, I hated those when I was a kid. I was like, why does anybody want to play these? And plus, when I was a kid, when I first started, Fender had a commercial that came out that said 4 out of 5 bass players or 9 out of 10 bass players play Fender, and I was like, well, I don't want to be like everybody else, man. So I'm never buying a Fender. Right. I'm kind of weird that way. I got to be different. So I don't have any Fenders.
No, I'm with you.
And I'm not. It's nothing against the product. I mean, it's a great product, but it's like, doggone it, I want to support the other people. So there you go.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna wrap things up here for this week.
Yep. Good timing. Goodbye, everybody. I'm gonna go save a life. So you guys are awesome. Keep rocking.
All right. As Brad logs off there to go help save someone's life, I just want to thank you guys for joining us this week, whether you're watching this live, whether you're watching a replay, whether you're listening to the audio version of this. Thank you. I appreciate your support over all of these years. And this will end up being episode 201. It amazes me that I've gotten this far. It kind of also sucks that I haven't done more. I look at Decibel Geek, who started a year after me, and they've got 500 something episodes. But it is what it is. Life has gotten in the way. 2 small kids, illnesses, and a bunch of different other things, and I do what I can. I appreciate again you guys checking in, you guys coming back week after week. Jeremy, Jose, Chris Sinzak, who jumped in today. And like I said, next week we're supposed to have Drew Fortier, and I guess Chris Sinzak said that he will be hopping on as well. So so cool. So thanks, guys. Thanks for checking the show out, and we'll see you next time right here on the Signals from Mars live stream, presented by the Mars Attacks podcast. See you guys.